Hi, and welcome back to Scratch. Today we're going to make some decadent fudgy brownies. For this recipe, we're going to need a cup of butter. For those of you that don't know, two sticks equal 1 cup. 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. I'm going to use a tablespoon of molasses, 4 room temperature eggs, a tablespoon of vanilla, 3/4 teaspoon salt, a cup each of flour and unsweetened cocoa powder, a cup of chocolate chips, and 2 1/4 cups of white sugar. I'm going to start this by preheating my oven to 350 degrees. Since I only have 1 whisk, I'm going to go ahead and start with my dry ingredients. I'll put a cup of flour, a cup of cocoa powder, and 3/4 tablespoons of salt together. And whisk those together. If you have a sieve, you can also sift these together as well for a more uniform mixture. Once I've combined the flour, cocoa powder, and salt, I'm going to set those aside and move on to my wet ingredients. First, I'm going to soften the butter using my microwave. I put my butter in the microwave for about a minute to soften it. That was a little too long, but it's okay if it's a little liquid because we're going to mix this in with our wet ingredients. We're going to start by adding a tablespoon of vanilla to the butter. And because my recipe technically calls for 1 1/4 cups of white sugar and 1 cup of light brown sugar, I'm going to add a tablespoon of molasses to create that cup of light brown sugar by using just 2 1/4 cups of white sugar. To my butter and vanilla, I'm going to add 2 1/4 cups of white sugar. And I'm going to start whisking this together. Once you've whisked this until it's about 2 shades lighter in color, I'm going to go ahead and add 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil and whisk to incorporate. Finally, for my wet mixture, I'll add in 4 room temperature eggs, 1 at a time. This helps to create air bubbles in the batter to help the brownies rise as they bake. Alright, now that I've whisked my wet ingredients, I'm going to go ahead and pour my dry ingredients on top of those. And we're going to fold the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients so that most of the air bubbles stay intact and help the brownies rise while cooking. Okay, so I've been folding this now for about 4 minutes, and you'll see how the mixture's pretty much evenly combined. So last, I'm going to fold in about a cup of chocolate chips. Then I'm going to grease an 8x11 pan. If you have an 8x12, that's fine. Just reduce the cook time by about 5 minutes. Once the pan is greased, I'm going to pour in the brownie batter and spread it evenly. Then I'll put this in my oven, which I preheated earlier to 350, for approximately 40 to 45 minutes. The brownies have been baking for about 45 minutes. Because we use chocolate chips, we can't rely on the toothpick test. A toothpick will not come out clean until after the brownies cool. So what I'm looking for are these cracks along the top that tell me that these are done. These look perfect, so I'm going to go ahead and take these out and let them cool for about 2 to 3 hours before we cut into them. Thank you for joining me today on Scratch, where we made some excellent brownies. And remember, if you like this content, please subscribe.